This is Strange Tales on Defenders TV podcast, where we're talking about Doctor Strange, Sorcerer Supreme of the Galaxy #2. Welcome back, fellow Defenders, to Strange Tales on Defenders TV podcast, our comic book discussion podcast. And this time we're going to be talking about Doctor Strange #2, Sorcerer Supreme of the Galaxy Part 2 by Mark Waid and Jesus Saez. I'm one of your hosts, Derek.
Hello there, fellow Defenders and Sorcerers. I am one of your other hosts, John. Maybe Supremes?
I don't know whether the Supremes follow us, John. Not too sure.
No, I mean our fellow listeners and defenders, the Supremes.
I like that. No, I do like it. It's very cool. Yes, fellow Defenders, we are back with our discussions on Doctor Strange #2, continuing our comic book discussions in between our coverage of Luke Cage and Iron Fist, our TV coverage. So getting deep into this comic book now, and the first issue, as we talked about, was very much the setup of the changeover from the old position of Doctor Strange and where he is now out in space. This one seems to have a lot of story in it.
Yes, this is certainly heavier on the story, and it's a really good tale as well for our second official episode of our Strange Tales on Defenders TV podcast.
Absolutely, and this is going to be obviously our spoiler-filled discussion about this comic book, so if you haven't read it, go out and grab it, make sure you read through it, and we'll discuss it then when you get back. This, in continuity terms, this is issue number 392 of Doctor Strange, just in case you're finding difficulty finding it, but that should be the easiest way to find it.
Yes, and of course, please subscribe to Strange Tales over at our website on defenderstvpodcast.com, where you can pick from a smorgasbord of choice with regards to your podcast catcher. There is Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, as well as any other good or evil podcast catcher, such as Podcast Addict or Beyond Pod.
Loads and loads of options.
Loads of them.
And you got to use your favourite word in there, John. Smorgasbord again.
Yes, I did.
Speaking of words, I was complaining last issue about the length of title for these episodes because obviously this is Sorcerer Supreme of the Galaxy Part 2. Quite a significant length of title. And then obviously popped into my head, because of Guardians of the Galaxy being shortened down to GOTG, we can just call this SSOTG. Right?
Yes, we can.
Sorcerer Supreme of the Galaxy. I'm sure that's what they were going for, but smarter minds than us are behind the scenes at Marvel, so it took us 2 issues to get that one.
Absolutely. Derek, let's kick this off. What are some of the episode details?
Well, as always, this issue was written by Mark Waid and the artwork is by Jesus Saez. The issue came out on the 20th of June. We were struggling last time when we were talking about the fact that there are 4 issues of this comic book out, trying to decide which issue is which month. That's kind of because the first 2 issues came out in June. So that's not our fault. We just were looking back and didn't see the dates. So this is the one that came out on June 20th. John, do you want to tell us the synopsis that Mark Waid has provided at the beginning of the book this time?
Sure. Though the dragon lines were restored and magic on Earth was safe from external threats, Doctor Strange could only watch in horror as his connection to it vanished. Afraid his condition could be contagious to other sorcerers, Strange sought help from Tony Stark, a man of science with experience rebuilding himself from nothing. Stark's solution: a one-man spacecraft, a universal translator, and a carefully plotted course into the stars. If terrestrial power was unreachable, there must be magic somewhere in the infinite universe that Strange could grasp. But before he reached his destination, a comet stranded Strange on a planet with hostile residents who had no native word for magic.
So on to our discussion points for Doctor Strange Part 2 of this storyline. We're not going to do a recap of what happened previously. That's kind of what's in that synopsis that John so wonderfully read for us.
Yes, thank you, Mark Waid.
But I do want to point out one thing that's mentioned there. We had discussed in the last issue or our last conversation that magic has disappeared from the entire universe, and that's why Strange is going on this journey into space. What we see here is actually it's disappeared from Strange, and he's concerned that it's going to be contagious to other magic users. That's different from what we read, isn't it?
Absolutely. I think we asked that question, didn't we, about whether this was kind of almost a recapping of some of the elements from Jason Aaron's The Last Days of Magic, whether it was just recapping that, because obviously we'd gone 7 years back, so to an extent it was showing the difference that resulted from that. But we didn't know whether it was kind of post the defeat of the Empirical, whereby, magic was no longer being destroyed by these creatures that were hell-bent on destroying magic. And so that stopped, and the fragments of magic throughout the different dimensions, throughout this particular dimension, or on Earth, in this universe, was really being focused around different amulets and different objects of magic significance.
Right.
And of course, really what's being said here then is that recovery has happened, that defeat of the Empirical has allowed magic to, begin to recover within the universe as we know it. However, Doctor Strange has some kind of affliction still, where he is losing his kind of, his signal to magic.
Yeah.
And which was really nicely done just by the sort of the little puff of smoke from the eyes in the first issue, where he is going blind to this magic and to seeing magic that beyond the normal vision that other people have, but also he's losing touch and the feeling and the sensation of magic in the universe. But yeah, it's not the universe losing magic, it's Doctor Strange's connection to that.
Interesting. Definitely wanted to make the point that we missed out on that last issue. I didn't recognise it in there, so that's definitely a change in there. I haven't read the Jason Aaron run, so intrigued to know what the Empirical is. Hopefully I'll get the chance to read it over the course of these strange tales on Defenders TV podcast. I am aware that Loki was the Sorcerer Supreme for a while, and I know that he put magic back into the universe as well, so part of him was helping Doctor Strange after he took over the mantle for a short period of time. But with that, John, let's get on to our discussion for this issue with our incantations. Incantation number 1.
Yes, Doctor Strange is a slave and test subject on this unfamiliar homeworld of Gorinda. We only got a glimpse of this new world that Stephen Strange had crash-landed to in issue 1. And certainly at the end of issue 1, Doctor Strange was kind of thinking, I come in peace, I come in love, expecting that it wasn't a hostile race. But here, they absolutely have put him in prison. And what we see here is beyond that, I think at this stage he's saying he's about 70-odd days in captivity, is that they're also using him as a test subject. We see a lot of panels here where he is being poked, prodded, tested, and they're really trying to figure out who this person is. But we have here a race that has no concept of magic. Yeah. They are technologically driven and focused. And so there's a lot of science stuff going on here by the Grindans on Stephen Strange, and it looks pretty painful as well.
Yeah, and it does seem like a bit of a joke, doesn't it, that the rocket ship that was given to him by Tony Stark, our leader of science on Earth, seems to have automatically attracted itself to the most technologically advanced race in the universe. It seems like actually maybe this was the destination that Stephen was supposed to be sent by Tony Stark. It's like, forget your magic. Why don't you go to a really technologically advanced race? Stephen even comments on the fact that some of the things they use feel pretty close to magic because they are very far advanced to where we are on Earth.
Yeah, this could actually have been a bit of a recce from Tony Stark. He knew about this planet. He had aligned the Hubble Space Telescope or something like that towards this world, and he had figured out it could hold life, and he was like going, I'm just going to plot a course to Grinda.
But he knows that Stephen's too smart for that, so he plots a course and makes sure that it's going to be in the path of a comet to knock him out of the sky,
Yeah,
Tony's a smart man.
It will be interesting now. You can just imagine that Tony Stark would do something like that. So maybe it's not an accident that he falls to this planet in Tony's spacecraft.
You never know. You never know. But like with most things on the Mark Waid run, this is a brand new species for the comics. We haven't seen the species before, which kind of brings into play one of the things that we see later on, and we'll discuss in one of our other incantations.
Yeah, there are a lot of new things being introduced here in this Mark Waid run. We had Zaxel from issue 1, one of the Elder Gods, being introduced, so that's kind of interesting. And, you really hope that these things will be used again by other writers and in other Doctor Strange tales or other comic books, with Brother Voodoo or Iron Fist or whoever. It would be really, really good to see, these new characters and a new lore being generated.
Yeah. Well, hey, he's out in space. Maybe the Guardians might use it in another book, or maybe we'll have Captain Marvel using it in another book. Maybe it'll form part of the Infinity Wars that's coming up in the later books. Maybe these characters will kind of spread out a bit into those other books that are based in space.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, certainly Stephen Strange, if Zaxel is going to be back, has to really get his magic mojo back on, to be honest.
Certainly.
But speaking of new stuff, incantation number 2, we have Stephen Strange with a potential new ally.
Maybe.
Yes. Now, we're not going to pronounce her name here on the podcast because apparently it's more of a sneeze.
Yes.
So, something like that.
Ziffincana is kind of how she says it, apparently. We've got the spelling in front of us. There's no way we're going to be able to pronounce it for other defenders. But because it ends with Canna, Stephen says to her, okay, actually, I'm just going to call you Canna just to make sure that I don't hurt myself every time I'm trying to say your name. A nice little gag from Stephen there.
Definitely. But we have Canna here, who is an archaeologist, not an archaeologist, like Stephen Strange thinks that she is. She's an alien character as well. I don't know what race she is. It's not really revealed here, and I'm not familiar with Canna at all from any other comics, but she is a new character.
She's brand new,
She's brand new. So it is an introduction of a new character in the form of Canna, and she is someone who is familiar with magic, is to some extent, I understood anyway, that she is doing a similar thing to Stephen Strange, not necessarily to regain magical abilities, but she's looking for magical artifacts and objects in order to sell them.
Yeah, I got that kind of Lara Croft kind of vibe about it.
Yeah, definitely.
Going around the universe, raiding tombs to find these magical artifacts. I love this character.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed the kind of interplay between her and Stephen. I love that she recognizes the accent, which is actually the voice of Earth, is basically what she's working it out as, and starts calling him Earthbilly, like Hillbilly.
Yeah, exactly.
Or at least that's what the Universal Translator is picking up. It seems to be kind of an insulting comment. We don't know what planet she's from, as you mentioned. She says that she's an impatient daughter of a Tarak, is a phrase that she says, but to me that sounds almost like she's saying son of a bitch, but in a different way. So I don't know whether Tarak is the planet that she comes from, or is that her father's name, or something like that. Or is it just one of those phrases that she's saying that just doesn't translate on the Universal Translator?
Definitely. Like I took it as her father's name, but it could be the race here, Tarak. It could be that.
Or it could be like son of a bitch.
Yes, exactly. Because she's a little skeptical of the Universal Translator. She sort of clocks it immediately that he's got one, because she kind of understands that he would not understand her.
Yeah.
I love the idea that she's going, there's a familiar smell about you. And then obviously with the Earthbilly, as you say, then you're kind of thinking, okay, maybe humans have a particular stench about them. Again, Lara Croft thing, really good. I love how she says to Stephen Strange, I was caught by the Grindons. I was breaking 5 laws that I didn't know about, but in fairness, I broke 2 laws that I did know about. So really, really good.
That's right.
And as well, just so that we are clear here, an arcanologist is someone who searches out for arcane magical items.
Yes.
So she's definitely an explorer. She is probably a little bit of an Indiana Jones about her. There is a bit of archaeologist in this archaeologist.
I have to say, one of my other favourite lines from Mark Waid in this issue is when she says, "Stephen, you have to try harder with your universal translator. I can hear the quotation marks around archaeologist." Really good, really good.
Yeah, really, really
I like
good.
these two. They're working very well together for me. We'll talk about the artwork a little bit later on in one of our later points, as usual, as we go on. John, do you want to take us on to the big moment, the big thrust of what happens in this issue as Doctor Strange tries to escape?
With incantation number 3, we have that Doctor Strange has revealed to the Grindons the existence of Earth. And it's through the escape by him and Kanna from the jail. They're racing to get to her ship that has been docked as she's been arrested. But as they're trying to escape, they're kind of hunkering down, trying to hide from the guards that have been put on alert. Doctor Strange hears that because of the tests that they have done on him, they are now very, very intrigued, very, very interested in space travel. And in particular, their destination will be Earth.
Yeah.
So there is this image of this huge spacecraft being built in the city on Grinda. And this is all because of Doctor Strange having crash landed on their planet and then becoming interested in his home planet. And I think as well that up till then, we do get this hint that they aren't or haven't been in the past interested in exploring other planets or going beyond their own atmosphere to explore.
Yeah, and I really like the reason why is because, well, they could do everything they want to on their home planet. Why would they need to go out to see the stupider races? It's kind of the attitude of it. But they realize with the prodding and poking that they've done to Stephen Strange, actually, the society on Earth is far more advanced than they thought it was going to be. So, an interesting one here. We know that Stephen Strange, as the Sorcerer Supreme, protects Earth from threats from other dimensions. That's his main thrust of the character. That's the main thing that he does. And he's now created a problem, possibly, for the Avengers, who protect Earth from extraterrestrial threats. So quite interesting. He was almost setting up the Avengers to have a huge battle against an entire race coming down to attack planet Earth because of the information that they learned from him.
Yeah, it's almost a bit like Star Trek and the Prime Directive here, in that, you know, Doctor Strange should never have shown himself, revealed himself to this species. That unfortunately, because of the crash landing, he had no choice. But that otherwise, he would have had to have been tiptoeing around, metaphorically, to find magical and mystical items on this planet, if they even existed. And of course, we find out that they actually do as well. Yeah. But the Grindons have hidden them. And this is where Kanna has been arrested and captured previously. These underground caves or vaults where they put anything that doesn't adhere to their particular ideology about technology and their prescribed sort of narrative about their race and their society. They've all been put out of the way. I mean, you know, this really is censorship in that sense.
Yeah.
And what Kanna has actually found before she was captured is, again, it's a new object. It's a new magical object here. It's called the Eye of Bosphorus. And it is an object of unlimited power. And this Eye of Bosphorus can grant those that wield it one spell of their choice, regardless of its power. The artifact can only be used once, and it will turn to dust afterwards. So, again, really interesting. We have this new magical object that's being introduced as well.
I love this. What a great MacGuffin, as they call them in our TV and movie coverage. What a great MacGuffin for Mark Waid to create here. The one object that can solve all of the world's problems. It's the object equivalent of the genie in the lamp. You know, rub it once and say, "I need 1,000 more wishes," kind of thing. You know, it will do whatever it is you want. Stephen looks at it for the first time, looks upon the image that's drawn for him by Kanna, and goes, "All I need to do is say, let's get all my magic back, sort out everything we need to." And unfortunately, because of his own loose lips, he has to use it to close off Grinda from the universe, has to close off this planet so that they don't attack the world.
Yeah, it's like, I actually thought this was a little harsh from Stephen Strange, actually, because I was kind of like going, are they all going to suffocate in there? Because effectively it's like putting a plastic bag around a planet or something. You know?
No, he's very specific about his spells.
Has it blocked out their light so that, you know, the plants die because they can't photosynthesize, and ultimately the Grindan race will die because Stephen Strange has kind of put this magical lock around and cover around this planet. I mean, the image of it is like fab. I loved it. I loved this kind of white cloud enveloping the Grindan homeworld, with Doctor Strange in the middle of a whole incantation.
Yeah.
The other great thing about this is that he has tried to use it once, and it's not worked. And that's because you have to combine the spell with adrenaline.
Hilarious.
And it's just so good in that, yeah, he effectively looks as though he's about to base jump from high orbit with this stone. It looks like he's possibly trying to escape, trying to flee from Canna with this like fantastic object that he can solve all his problems with. But instead he uses it to close down the planet so that the Grindans can't leave to go and either attack Earth or to enslave Earth. So this was really nice. As you say, it's a nice catch-22. He's got the answer to his problems in his hand, but ultimately he acts selflessly in order to stop the Grindans from attacking Earth.
But yeah, it is quite a big solution to the problem, isn't it? They,
it really is.
They threaten Earth once, and now they can never do any space travel again, and no one can ever visit the planet again, is what we hear. That he's closed off all routes in and out of the Grindan homeworld. So quite a significant choice here.
Yeah. What's it? A sledgehammer to crack a walnut?
That's the one. Exactly. We do see at the end of this that himself and Canna, now that Stephen has had some experience of magic again, the adrenaline's been rising, and now they go off on their adventures for more magical and mystical artifacts. That's how their story ends. But as we've learned from many, many Doctor Strange books over the years, the biggest through line through all of them is magic has a price. So on to incantation number 4. A mystical accountancy firm, John? That be accurate?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting, really, isn't it? Because the accountant who is receiving the accounts receivable for Doctor Strange just looks like a regular human, yet the hand that passes him the envelope is a devilish-looking hand indeed. I mean, it almost reminded me of, you know, some of those classic Mephisto looks, yes, where he's just a red demon or red devil, and
that came straight into my head.
It certainly looked like that, and you're kind of wondering, is this Mephisto getting back at him for damnation? In that, the fairly extreme solution that Doctor Strange has gone to cut off the Grindan world is a massive bill to be paid in kind by him for the price of magic, yes, or that this new object of unlimited power, the Eye of Bosphorus, is so powerful because it can grant anyone any wish they want, that it comes with a massive receipt.
And can only be used once, so it's now off the table. That's it. It's gone from the world and the universe. Fab. I love this storyline. I love this idea that they hit upon with Doctor Strange. We've talked about it numerous times off the podcast as well as on the podcast, but this concept of, yes, he is a supreme magical powered person, but unlike somebody who can punch very strong or run very fast, his magic has a price. There's always a price to pay. This concept that's come in very regularly throughout the Doctor Strange books. And what a great way to do it.
Yeah.
Have somebody who is totting up the books, looking at this photograph of Strange over the top of a planet as he closes it off and going, oh no, this won't do. Is it because it's Stephen doing it? Is one of the questions that I have coming out of this. Is it because it's Stephen Strange using this power and Stephen Strange is not supposed to be using these powers at all, or is it the power that he's used is so powerful that he has a huge price to pay? That's my big question coming out of the book.
And that is the question. I also like the fact that it is a bit Buffy the Vampire Slayer, or should I say Angel, with regards to the fact that it is this magical accountancy firm that deals with the payments needed for the use of magic.
Nice.
We've got the bar, the secret bar, where all the mystical, magical characters go for a drink and to meet up. Now we've got the magical, mystical accountancy firm. And it really reminded me of Angel.
Like it.
And I really liked that idea. I do hope we get to see more of this accountancy firm for sure.
Absolutely. Let's quickly go on to our final incantation, John. We have to talk about the artwork for this book. I think this scene that we've talked about a few times here, the Eye of Bosphorus locking the planet on pages 17 to 19 on the digital version on Comixology, is absolutely epic. It looks fantastic. It goes across 3 full pages as Stephen jumps out of the spacecraft, locks down the planet, and then is seen standing above it. It's fabulous. Absolutely beautiful.
A great bit of artwork. I love the sort of the runic incantation around his whole body as it then spills out towards the planet of Grinda, as it sort of encapsulates it. It is, as you say, really epic in just the scope of it, and just so nicely done. So much so that, yes, they use it again with the photo coming out of the accounts receivable envelope. So really, really good.
That must have been the Hubble telescope that took that one, right?
It must have, yeah, absolutely. Maybe they thought it was a star, but it was actually the flash going off of, the accountancy investigators. And again, the design of Kanna, I think, is pretty cool,
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of the Predator kind of dreadlocks coming out from top of her head. Really, really good.
That's only because we just watched Alien vs. Predator, isn't it?
It really is, yeah.
It really reminded me of some of the designs that are in the excellent book Saga, the Brian K. Vaughan book.
Yes, that is true.
When we're going out into space, we're seeing new creatures and new characters. There are obviously going to be some that we've seen before. In this case, seeing this character, Kanna, she's got a really good presence about her, and it comes across in her look and in her style. She really has that dismissive, cocky arrogance of a Han Solo, that kind of that adventurer side of her, like a Lara Croft kind of thing. She doesn't seem to suffer fools. I love that conversation that they have up to the end of the issue. She hasn't even asked Stephen his name because here I was treating you like a sidekick, I love that kind of style, this design. And we said it before in Doctor Strange comic books, one of the things that artists should get excited about when they get the opportunity to work on Doctor Strange is what you can create. What Mark Waid has done in this case is given the opportunity to Jesus Saez to create the universe, to create planets, to create a whole race full of people, to create this new sidekick, I suppose, or partner for Doctor Strange. That's cool. That's great to have the opportunity where you're not just having to reference back 100 books to pick up a character you've seen before. You're actually getting to put your stamp on the universe of Marvel. That must be pretty cool.
Yeah, that must be fantastic. And it is. It's just some really good artwork as well. I even just like the coloring, the tone of it is really nice because it is really colourful, but it's also muted at the same time. And I really, really enjoy that. It's vibrant. It's really colourful, but it's not over the top and in your face. And I really, really am enjoying the artwork here. And I think, as you say, it's that partnership between the writer and the artist in comic books where it is this dual vision.
Exactly.
There's the writer who is writing the dialogue, writing the story, and the artist putting the panes together to visualize that, which is such a unique experience in literature in that sense. Obviously it's used widely in doing movies in terms of doing those panels to construct and plan the shot of the camera, but so it's really, really good.
And even in comics, it's quite rare. This used to be the purview of indie comic books. I mentioned Saga. I mentioned things like Why the Last Man, where you have a partnership side by side, The Walking Dead would be another example of having the same artist and the same writer on a book for decades. In some cases, it's not something you see very often in the big comic books in DC and Marvel. You see it in things like Batman with Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo. You've seen it in a number of cases before, but it's great when these comic books are written by people who are putting their own stamp on the world. And already 2 issues in, I really want to see more of Jesus Sayers' work. What he's done here has been fantastic, really enjoyable.
Yeah, I mean, certainly for me, Black Science is another example where you have Remender and Scalera really having a fantastic time together, designing a whole new world based on the story. So really, really cool.
I like seeing new stuff. I like that you mentioned Rick Remender. We may be coming back to him in future on some of our Strange Tales on Defenders TV podcast as well. I think that's it for Incantations, John. Going to give it over to you as usual. Do you defend this issue of Doctor Strange, the Sorcerer Supreme of Space, number 2?
Yes, I do defend this issue of Doctor Strange, Sorcerer Supreme of the Galaxy. I give this 4 name sneezes out of 5. I really enjoyed just the development, really quickly into seeing Doctor Strange hook up with Kanna in the prison cell and just their pitter-patter between one another. So good. I like the fact that she is absolutely has no reverence for Doctor Strange. She, as you say, treating him like a sidekick. I really enjoyed that. And then again, the continuation of this really good artwork coupled with the story. And for me, seeing the accountancy firm and the accounts receivable as Stephen Strange, again, forced into a position where he could use it for himself, but doesn't, decides to act for the benefit of Earth and humanity, and of course to give the Avengers and the Defenders a bit of a break. So I really enjoyed this, and I can't wait to see Kanna and Doctor Strange head off and see what other adventures they get into as they search for other magical artifacts. I thought it was really, really good. And again, I like the fact that, his escape comes from a dark place as well, in that, he's been a test subject, and ultimately he realizes that the Grindons maybe aren't as insular as they appear, and that they've got some pretty bad stuff for Earth. However, what he did certainly seemed extreme, and looks like he's going to get one huge bill at the end of the year.
We'll see, definitely. 2 things particularly that I loved about this. The idea of having him on the planet in captivity for 73 days, getting tortured during that time, has brought him to a level we don't normally see Doctor Strange at. He's not the arrogant Doctor Strange, which means that moment when he meets Kanna is different to the way he normally meets other characters in his world. He's a downtrodden character. He's wondering, is there a way out of this situation, or has he lost a bit of hope? That's a really nice choice. The other thing I really liked about this, it's quite standalone. It starts off with him in a cell because of what happened in the previous issue, but by the end of the issue, it is to infinity and beyond. Where are we going to go next on our next adventure? It's not really telling us exactly what's going to happen in the next one. So it could be anywhere, it could be any planet. But I am really looking forward to seeing the adventures between these 2 characters. Fellow Defenders, that's it for our coverage of this issue of Doctor Strange, SSOTG number 2.
Yes, we will be back with Doctor Strange issue number 3, which is the Super Skrull and the Time Stone. Ooh, spoilers.
Interesting.
What Time Stone might that be, I wonder? Is there only one?
There can be only one, John.
Can there be only one? Yes.
And fellow Defenders, make sure you stay subscribed to the podcast over at defenderstvpodcast.com. You can subscribe to it on any mystical or magical podcast catcher like Google Podcasts or Apple Podcasts. You can see those over on our website. We also have a feed just for our Strange Tales on Defenders TV podcast. You can find that over on iTunes or Apple Podcasts just by searching for Strange Tales. You should see it pop up there in the next couple of weeks. Looking forward to be back for the next episode.
Yes, as always, fellow Defenders and the Supremes, it is a pleasure speaking with you. And Yeah, I'm off to go and have a bath to get rid of that earthbilly smell, just to clean up in time for when we come back to speak with you next time.
Bye.
Bye.